Joining me now is one of the amazing artists at Wildstar Tempest, Theurer. Heather, thanks for joining us on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we dive into all of this artwork and illustration that you've been involved in, we want to learn about the artist. Tell us a little bit about your story and kind of some of your techniques as well.
Oh, story. Where do you want to start? Well, I've always wanted to be an artist since I was yay high. And when my mom, dad asked me what I wanted to grow up to be, I said, I'm going to grow up to be a famous artist someday. And they're like, oh, that's nice, sweetie. It's kind of like when your kid says they want to be a prima ballerina or an astronaut. You're like, sure. Well, it just kind of stuck. And here I am doing what I want to do. I'm still working on the famous part, but I'm an artist and I get to do it as a job. I love it. So I've been doing this for a long, long time, obviously. Didn't go to college or anything. I got a couple of classes is all in basic art, and then it's just been a lot of work and study after that. The observation is key, so looking at the details, looking how light is affected on different surfaces, paying attention to form and line and all of the other things that are involved in real life. You just see it, your eye interprets it a certain way, and that's really, really important. So like people will catch me, I'll be sitting in a restaurant and I'm off staring at the corner and people are like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, I'm just looking at the corner and watching the light how it reflects around the corner of the building. I'm a little weird that way, but that's me. I just look at everything. And I think that if any aspiring artist wanted to do something similar to this, that would be it. Absolutely. Observe and then work at it. You can't just let it click away in your head and not apply it. The symbolism comes more from experience, and the observation then ties it all together.
That's very cool. Now, these hanging up around your house, it's probably a good journal for you to see, maybe I was experiencing this, or this is how I interpreted this. It's probably a great journal entry.
It is, and I'm not a journalist. Is that the right word? Anyway, yeah, I don't write a journal very well, but this is my interpretation of my life as I go along, and it's kind of interesting because people will come and ask me what they mean, and I'm like, well, how much do you want to know? Because you could actually know my personal history here in what I'm creating as I go along, because every year there's something new that happens, and that's what ends up in the painting in some way or another, So yeah, it is, and I can go back and I can look at a painting and remember what was going on in my life at the time when I painted it, which is my own personal journal, I guess. You're right.
That's very cool. It brings back those memories. Do you have a certain medium that you stay in with all these paintings, or do you kind of dabble in other mediums?
Ooh, I like lots of mediums, but I am a fan of oils. Yeah. Love oil. I mean, I could sketch all day. A pencil is like an extension. It's like an extra finger for me. And I love to draw all the time, anytime. But oil paintings, I've always admired the great masters, so, they all work in oil, and that's what I wanted. So when I started doing painting, I started in acrylics and watercolors, and they never stuck with me. Yeah. So they all went by the wayside, and I went with oils. So that's what I do mostly.
Books and words and things like that communicate only to a certain amount of audience, but a painting doesn't have words. And, a picture does speak 1,000 words. Yours communicates to almost any language out there because of the symbolism, and anyone can kind of pick it apart and kind of pull things for themselves and say, what, that kind of meant something to me. So
it's individual. Like, I've had people come and interpret it their own way, which is awesome. That's what I love about doing the symbolic work, because I can have my own interpretation of what it means, but they can personalize it to their own experience. And what I love even more than that is when people come to the booth and they'll immediately think, I have to have that piece, and they don't know why. And then I tell them what it means, and they're like, I knew it. So it's saying something to them subliminally, I guess, in a way that speaks much deeper than a set of words I can hand them on a piece of paper, which is really, really quite rewarding for me. I love that.
How long would you say for this one behind us, the I Am, how long did that one take?
Well, I started this sketch about 18 months ago. If I were to compress it all into a certain amount of time that I was working full-time on it, it would take about 2.5 months. So, but I had to learn to be a fast painter. I have kids, and they like to stick their fingers in paint, so I have to be quick.
That's awesome. Now let's talk about your involvement with Wildstar Tempest. What do you do there, and how are you involved?
Well, as Wildstar Tempest as a whole, we kind of as a collaborative group that all have a similar directive. We want to be able to uplift people and bring people messages that are going to help them make their lives better, whether that's through literature or through imagery, whatever it is, and that's kind of our goal as a whole. And so when I got together with Alexander and we started working this out, it's just become this, it's been 16 years that we've been working together on this project in a way, and it's evolved from, just a couple of paintings at the beginning, which started with his book. I did a cover like 16 years ago for that, and to actually printing the book and selling that, and then of course having a giant booth full of artwork. So it's really grown quite a bit, and quite honestly, we have met our goal on so many levels. It's really, really pretty neat.
Now we're going to touch on another painting here. This one's called I Am and has a lot of symbolism. Let's go ahead and talk about the different parts of the symbolism and how it connects to you.
The idea was spawned from an experience. Again, most everything comes from some kind of experience or another, where my daughters had gone to, it was probably some superhero flick or another, and they came home and they told me how disappointed they were in the main female protagonist. And so we were having this discussion about this character, and what was coming up was what it meant to be a woman, and that really all that it meant was you had to kick butt and be sexy, and that was it. And which I think is a really narrow perspective of what womanhood is. So we had this very needful discussion. I have teenage daughters, so this is right at the cusp of everything for them. And so we talked about what it meant to be a woman. Now this doesn't necessarily apply to women only, what's in this painting, but that's what it came from. And so I had some introspective moments, and I was thinking about it, and I think that none of us are immune from tearing ourselves down on what we're not good at or what we're not as good as on screen, what you see. And I went through the same thing, and I was like, okay, back up, I got to stop a minute, and because I know I'm better than that. And so I stopped, I'm like, okay, fine. I pull out a piece of paper, and I wrote I am at the top of that piece of paper, and I filled in all the things I felt confident in saying. And they weren't all good things. I mean, they were things that were weaknesses of mine as well as strengths. I am this, I am that, I am this, I'm that. And that's where the idea for this painting started to come together. And because as I was doing these parts, I could see pieces of it. So it wasn't like some of my paintings where I see the image like in completion at beginning. It kind of fell into place. So this painting is all the things that I feel like, not me personally, I am, although it is a little bit that way, but that I think we can all kind of piece together in our lives. So I'll start over here on the left. Up here she has this pack on her back, and that is I am burdened. So we all have some kind of burden or another that we carry, and burdens it tends to have a negative connotation. It's not necessarily negative, although it could be, I suppose. Everything from this nest just underneath the wing, which is those we take care of. You can see there's eggs in there. So it's like me and my children. Those are those who are in my care. So that's the burden of caring for other people. Again, not necessarily a negative thing, but that's what it is, a burden we carry. Then there's the burden of time, which is the hourglass. There is the burden of knowledge, which is the books. She has other small burdens. We all have our own unique little burdens, which there's little packages in there. The keys are the burdens of our responsibility, the things that we have to take care of, the things we have to do. There's some shells and beads there, which, while I wanted to use this Kenyan woman as reference, I decided to delve into her culture to get that. We all have a burden of culture, whatever that is, what we've grown up with or what we live in. And so that's what those shells are. That's actually reference to the Kenyan culture. And those have their own little specific meanings to them. So these are all the things we're burdened with. But in the midst of that, I am blessed, which is the wings. So even though we have those burdens, we have the strength to be lifted and make them lighter, which is what the wings represent. The red, anytime I throw red in any one of my paintings, it represents sacrifice in some form or another. I'm willing to sacrifice. The candle in her hand is I am faithful. Her pose, if you look at a lot of my other angel women characters, they tend to be in rather strong poses. They're confident. Her pose is actually very not confident. I mean, she's insecure almost in that pose, which is I am insecure, yet at the same time, she has the armor on, which is I am fierce. I am a warrior, that even though I am insecure a lot of the time, that I can take on the world at the same time. If you notice all of the elements in her outfit, her costuming, it's all very different, and that is the I am a product of my environment. We kind of glean from our environment part of who we are, which is she's got up in her collar around her neck, it was actually a bunch of weird looking mushrooms growing, and I was like, those look so cool, so I'm going to turn that into her collar. This part of her skirt here was partly scales from a reptile, and then it kind of blends in with seagrass. So there's all kinds of everything that makes up who she is. I am imperfect. You look at the fabric around here, it's all kind of shredded and falling apart. I am imperfect, but yet at the same time, I believe we're all a little bit divine, which is her halo. And the last piece in all of this is this dragon behind, and everyone asks me, well, what's the dragon? Well, in this piece, it's the part of the I am. It is the part of me, that's part of us, that goes beyond who we are. It takes on wings, it takes on a heartbeat of its own, the things we do, the things we say, the things we create, that take on a life that we have no control over after we let it go. It's like kind of like a painting and handing it over to somebody. They can take it and make out of it what they want. It has an influence beyond what I can touch myself. And that's what that is. That's our legacy that we can't do anything about, for good or for evil. And hopefully it's good. But in this sense, this dragon is kind of intently sitting behind her, because that's part of her. That's part of her that is outside of her being. And so that's what this piece represents, is all the parts of me, the parts of us as in humanity, that even though juxtaposing elements of it, they're honest. Because no one person is perfect, but that we can be beautiful and be successful and be fantastic regardless of having those weaknesses, because we have the strengths to bring them back up again. And that's what I wanted to get in this piece. Most of my pieces are painted to give hope, really, because there's a lot of dark in the world, there's a lot of sorrow, there's a lot of sadness and depression, and I get where that comes from. But I want to lift people too, so that when they see, they'll see this part of themselves. This is the easy part to see, all the weaknesses that we have. And I want them to see that they can be strong and they can be beautiful and they can be just as faithful as the next person, because that is who they are. They just have to recognize it in themselves. That's what I wanted to get in that piece.
That's very cool. Now, that conversation with your daughters probably became a lot better after seeing this painting. They probably were able to see kind of the insight you had on women.
It is. It was very strong, and the fact that they can go to it and they now have a visual representation of that conversation that doesn't go away. I mean, because we all learn in different ways. Some of us learn by hearing, some by seeing, some by doing, or reading, whatever it is. And I think that if you can kind of pull them all together and make it so that people, when they see something, they get the verbal as part of it, it makes it more real to them. And so the fact that I'm able to do that is really kind of exciting. I like to be able to do that for people. And it is real for my daughters, because they see it all the time. They're reminded of that conversation. And so the conversations continue, which is really great.
That's amazing. Now, this has so much depth to it, so much symbolism behind it. And the one we're going to be giving away, tell us about that one, what it's printed on, and then what you're going to be doing to it after we leave the show, what you're going to do to it for the giveaway winner.
Well, this is printed on birchwood board, and I picked the manufacturer actually does this all on renewable. It's renewable sources. Everything, I could get the whole workout of what this place does. So you're not just getting a piece of wood, chopping down a tree. This is a really great product, and they do stuff for charities and all kinds of stuff as they do the part. Anyway, so this is just straight up printed. What I do with these is I then embellish them with 22 karat gold, which is what you see on the original. So each one of the limited editions also have the 22 karat gold. Then from corner to corner, top to bottom, side to side, I hand embellish the entire thing with a clear glass gel, so it looks like it's been painted by hand, which technically it is. And then when that's all done and dry, then I sign it and number it. So everything is part of a limited edition of 100 per size. So this is not your average open edition piece that there's going to be a million made of.
That's amazing. So the one that the giveaway winners are going to get are a limited edition piece.
Yeah, one of 100. So they're already delving into the first of the. Actually, they'll get the first ones. So that's a good thing to have when you have number 1 and number 2.
Now, to enter the giveaway, simply log onto our social sites and enter the giveaway. If you don't win the giveaway, you can still order this great painting from wildstartempest.com. Heather, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
My pleasure again. Thank you very much.